Okay, so today we're going to talk about one way of easily creating video quizzes. And the specific tool we're going to use is, well, actually, before we talk about the specific tool, let's talk about why you might want to use videos. In general, we know that multimodal instruction supports learning. When students see things in multiple formats, when they watch videos, when they do readings, when they see just alternative phrasing, voicing, examples, it tends to reinforce learning. And so it's helpful. Um, and you can always create a quick video if students are having some problems with something. It could be they're using a new software tool and they're having trouble with something. You send you an email. You could record a quick video on Panopto or elsewhere and then upload it and give them all access to something where you work through and they see what you're doing and do it step by step. Um, it's also really important if you're going to use a flipped learning approach, because if you want students to do some work beforehand to prepare for classes and then work on problems in the class, it helps to have some materials to share with them. And a common way of doing that is in video formats as an alternative to spending class time lecturing. Now, there we go. And also, if you're teaching an online course, an asynchronous course, a hybrid course, or even a high flex course, which is a combination of all those possibilities, you it helps to create a sense of instructor presence, that when students see you on the screen, hear you, it makes you feel more, well, it makes them feel that they're more connected to the instructor. It gives them more a sense of you as a person rather than just text or words that show up on screens. Now, if you want for video source, and we're going to talk about videos that have already been created here. We've done lots of workshops, and there's another one coming up later on creating videos by Jason Hine, who's a videographer for extended learning. But let's assume we already have the videos, and they could be ones that you create. And all the ones that I use with video quizzes are videos that I've created primarily to support a flipped learning approach, or use videos created by others. And pretty much any video that's out there on YouTube, any public video that's out there on YouTube, one with a transcript for accessibility purposes, can be used as a basis for a video quiz. And there's a number of tools out there. And I should have paid more attention to the order. We'll get to the number of tools in just a minute. Some general advice if you're doing it, keep it simple for sustainability. The more elaborate the video and the more elaborate the editing and other things you put into it, the more costly it becomes and the less likely you are to persist or to make updates or to modify it in the future. Keep them short and focused so that you can use them in multiple classes. You know, there are some basic concepts that you may be using in more than one class. If you keep the video short and focused on that one concept, you could use it wherever it's needed, and that can be helpful. And also, by doing this, you can rearrange it. If you revise your course, many of the videos will still be applicable. So keeping short and focused videos is really handy. And another thing that people have noted is that it doesn't have to be perfect. That if you have a cat, that often happens for people who have cats, wanders across your desk or across the surface or in front of the computer, that again tends to humanize you a little bit. If there's a cough or something similar, it makes it clear that you're a real person sitting there doing this and you're not some sort of an AI avatar. But in general, students often feel more comfortable when they see that you as a professor make mistakes too. And I have been demonstrating that in some of the workshops today in particular. But when you create videos, be enthusiastic. We know there's a lot of research that suggests that that emotions are contagious in both directions. That if we're enthusiastic about our subjects and about what we're talking about, that tends to be picked up by students. And similarly, if you're in a classroom and your students are lively and energized, you tend to be. On the other hand, that if you're not very enthusiastic and your students pick up on that and they just sit there passively without interacting, that tends to affect your enthusiasm, and we can get into some downward cycles there. But with a video, it's only one directional, but still, the more enthusiastic you can be, the more engaging the videos will tend to be, and the more focus the students will tend to have. And when creating them, it really helps to use personal examples when relevant, because again, that builds more of a sense of immediacy. And that's especially important if you're teaching online classes and such things. Okay, and to start a video to help maintain student engagement and interest, start the videos when possible with an interesting question to provoke curiosity. Now, if it's a very narrow purpose video, you may not need to do that. If it's something that they need to know to be able to do some stage or step of your course, you don't have to necessarily provoke curiosity because they need that assistance right then. Okay. I'm not sure why that's happening, but some general more advice. If you are using examples, there is evidence that using examples with emotional impact will help encourage learning. And in fact, negative impact, negative emotions tend to increase long-term recall more than positive ones. So if there's some sort of a case study and so forth that makes students a little bit upset about what's happening, it does tend to make them a bit more engaged. But we don't necessarily want to provoke them into being upset all the time. But again, stories that have some emotional connections to students, or that students can experience the emotions of that situation, tend to be positive. In general, in creating videos, supporting our growth mindset is good because we know that that tends to increase learning and motivation and engagement and a sense of autonomy, and it's just good in general. And obviously, with accessibility, especially now with Title II kicking in, make sure that all your videos are captioned and all images are described in the video content, just so that we do meet accessibility standards there. And in general, to caption videos, you could use YouTube, you could use Panopto. Actually, Zoom works as well, or Auto.ai. And there's any number of captioning services, but the captioning services are getting better and better. I tend to use Auto.ai. Sometimes I've used YouTube as well. But whatever you use, make sure you go back and check the captions to make sure that they're accurate. And again, they've improved dramatically in quality in just the last couple of years because of the improvements through AI. Okay, now, one of the things that happens is that if we are doing a flipped classroom approach, or if we're teaching an online class and we've embedded some short lecture videos in the course, we know that students don't always come prepared to class, or they don't always watch these videos. And so sometimes they skip these things. And it's also somewhat passive, that it's really easy to get distracted while watching a video, especially if it's not an interesting story about something. If you're not watching an interesting Netflix show or something similar, it's pretty easy to get distracted, especially if it's a longer video, which is another reason to keep the videos short. But if you embed some questions in the video, then it becomes a little bit more active, or at least it keeps maintaining a focus and it resets that focus. And also, Panopto does have a nice thing. If you put videos in there and you share them with your class, you can actually see what parts of the video students are watching and who watched it and for how long, if you want to do that. I know when I first started using Panopto, several years, well, quite a few years back when we first started it here, I did sometimes check, and I looked at when the student use was the most. And in general, I was specifically in an econometric class, whenever they had a fairly more elaborate assignment to do outside of class, I noticed that they spent a lot more time watching the videos just to go back and review what they needed to know in order to, complete the assignment successfully, if their notes or their recollection wasn't sufficient. And I also noted that students who were second language learners, at that particular year, I had quite a few students from Korea in the class, and I noticed they were using it quite a bit more. And they said they really appreciated, for the technical terms in the class, because they were not things they had learned before, they appreciated having the captions and seeing it while we were talking about it, because at the time when I was doing presentations in class, they were not necessary. Captions weren't available. This was a while back. So embedding questions directly into the video stream allows you to check to see that they're doing things. It makes it more likely that students will complete the video watching. And if you insert them at multiple parts through the video, it makes it much more likely that their attention will be maintained. Because if they know there's a question coming up in the video, they're much more likely to be paying attention than if they're also watching something in a streaming video or watching a sports game or talking to friends and other things while playing through a video. So embedding the questions, again, helps maintain a more continuous focus. And one of the tools for that, there's a number. Panopto has some capabilities for this, but they're limited. Each question that you impose, unless it's changed, when I last checked it, whenever you added a question to a Panopto video, it ended up being a separate grade. And often I put 5 or 6 or 7 questions in a video, but at least generally a couple of them in the video. And I didn't want to have that many grades for each individual assignment for each video that was there. And also the interface was a little bit clunky. It didn't work quite as easily, and there weren't quite as many options as other tools. I switched over to another platform, which actually was bought up by a company called WeVideo, and they've dramatically raised the price. I was paying, I think it was $300 a year, and for a class the size of mine, my large intro class, it was something like $3,000 a year if I were to continue using that going forward, although I was grandfathered in. Another issue with that is it wasn't integrated into Brightspace. So each time I had video assignments every week, there would be 2 or 3 videos students had to watch because it was a flipped classroom approach. I'd have to get all the scores from that, download them, weight them, create a weekly score, and then sync them with the Brightspace gradebook. And that was a lot of time on my part, and it made it also harder when students wanted to go back and redo things because I'd have to manually adjust them. And when you have 300 or 400 students, as I typically did back when I first started doing this, it's smaller now. I think we only had 265 students in that one section last fall. It's a lot of work having to go back and adjust it when students want to go back and fill in videos that they missed earlier, because it's looking up the gradebook in the tool and then transferring the grades over. And that was just taking far too much time that I would have rather spent giving students more immediate feedback. So one of the things what I switched to most recently, actually beginning last fall, is EdPuzzle. This is a platform that's been used in high schools and middle school for quite some time. And they've got quite a few users, and a lot of students were already used to using the interface, and it integrates with Brightspace. And you can, and with EdPuzzle, you can create up to 20 videos with a free account. If you want to do more than that, then you do have to pay for it or cycle the videos in and out or something similar, but you can only have 20 that are active at a time. So I switched to this, and you can take any video that's out there on YouTube or Vimeo or other streaming services into an interactive lesson. Most of the time people are using YouTube, but you could also use TED-Ed, National Geographic, or your own ones, and so forth. So the platform I was using that was owned by WeVideo allowed for many different types of questions, including multiple select, numeric responses, and it allowed for math typing and other things from the student side, and it had a lot of features, but this only has 2 options, either multiple choice questions or open-ended questions where students could type in a response that you would then have to go in and manually grade, because it didn't have the option of auto grading free response type questions. You could add notes though, which could be audio notes embedded in a video or text notes at certain points, so that in addition to having questions, you could also put in some additional information, some clarification, which you could even do after a question if you chose to. And you can set it so that it would prevent skipping. I don't know why that box thing is something that was not originally in here, but let's try that again. That prevent skipping if you want to force students to watching content before they move forward. And I have often done this in my videos because what sometimes happened is if you look at the tracking data, students would just jump to the first question, try it, and then they would go back and try it again and again until they figured out which was correct. And there wasn't a lot of learning that was taking place. So I generally set it so that they can redo the whole video, but they pretty much have to go the whole video from beginning to end. Most of them are 5 to 7 minutes long, but it's I generally do set it to prevent skipping, but you don't have to. But then students can skip over large parts of it if they choose to. And some students would. And sometimes those are the students who most need to review the material. Okay, so the basic workflow is you open EdPuzzle, you find or upload a video. You have the option within EdPuzzle of cropping the video, basically cutting off the beginning or ending of it or trimming it. And I think you can crop it vertically or horizontally. I'm positive about that. And then you add any questions or notes you want to the video screen. You assign it and post it in Brightspace. And when you do, you select the number of attempts and set the prevent skipping toggle either to on or off. And then basically, again, you can create up to 20 video assignments. Students have access to that. You just embed it right in Brightspace, wherever you want the video to go. Students will take it and you can set it up so that they could have unlimited attempts, 1 attempt, 2 attempts, or however many attempts you want to allow them to do before their grade is locked in. And so, would you like to try creating one? Well, yes, Amanda.
No, I would love to do this. Even just as a staff member, I find that training staff and student workers who come and go frequently to be able to present material that they can then learn from and to track that, that would be great.
Okay, and the grades automatically go into Brightspace. They don't show up until the first student takes it. So let's go through an example. And let's see. When I first tried it, I made a mistake. I thought you had to set everything. Oops. Never mind. That was the wrong tab. Let's go into EdPuzzle. What you do basically is you first create an EdPuzzle account. And again, you can create 20, one more time. EdPuzzle. And then you log in with an email address. I generally log in with my Oswego email address. I don't think you have to. I do because it eventually, I choose, well, I already have an account, but basically you create an account, choose as a teacher, you create an account, and I'm just going to do it with this. You could use Google or Microsoft to authenticate. And then on this computer, I only have 3 of my Google accounts. There we go. And now I've got it. So I'm not going to go to the free the Summer Teaching Festival. But it comes up and it looks something like this. Now, when you first create it, it's going to ask you some questions and it will ask you if you want to create classes. It turns out you don't have to. I first did this and I created a class and I posted some videos there and then I tried to connect it. Basically, all you need to do is create the videos. And then when you're in Brightspace, you just go to, in the module you want to edit, we'll go through that. But that's where you actually then log in and it connects Brightspace to this. And we do have the LTI integration set up so that any videos that once you enter Brightspace, you try to do this the first time, it will ask you to log into EdPuzzle. And from then on, it will be connected to that Brightspace account through an LTI. Okay, so what you can do there is you can look at any videos created in your school, you could look at YouTube, and there's all sorts of filters you can put on it. But let's do this. Let's find a video and let's go to YouTube. And is there any sort of video you'd like to just play with? We're not going to do a lot of details with it, but
How about how to grow tomatoes?
okay, how to grow tomatoes. Let's try that. With or without the E. Okay, here, let's take a short one. It doesn't have to be, but this one's 12 minutes. That should be fine. So what we're going to do is just go here.
Wayfair's top 3 tips for hosting the perfect pool party.
And you know, I forgot to turn on sound when I shared it, but that's probably okay because you don't need to hear the the how to grow tomato or the ad. So then just go over to share, grab the, or you could grab it from the top, or we could go here and copy the URL, go into EdPuzzle. So we're just going to put the YouTube link right there and select it. And what this is going to do is load it into EdPuzzle. And this is where you would do the trimming, where you would, if you don't want the whole video, if you only want the first 5 minutes or the last 5 minutes or the middle 3 minutes or whatever, you could do that. And then if you wanted to do a voiceover on top of it, you could record one from here, or we could go with the actual video. And here we go. And now this is a new feature. It has polls, which it did not have before, and it has reflection things, which it did not have when I last used it, say 2 months ago, when I last created one of these 2 months ago. So that's nice. The generate questions with AI is a really nice feature, but it only works if it already has some information in there. So that's not, I don't think, well, we can try it, but I don't think it has enough to be able to do that. So we can try and see, but it's unable to generate questions. Basically, if a video has been used by multiple people, it will generate new, AI will generate new questions based on what other instructors and users have already created. They'll be new, but it doesn't work with, apparently how to grow tomatoes is not taught that much in high school or middle school classes, with videos at least. So what we're going to do is just, I'm going to stop the share for a second so I can turn on the sound so you can do it. I should have done that before. So 1 second. And I'm going to share the screen again with audio. And there we go. And I'll optimize it for video sharing so it will stream more effectively. Okay, so now we've got this video. And we just basically go to a point where we want the question. Let's just listen to it for a little bit.
In this video, I'm compressing over 12 years of my tomato growing experience into under about 15 minutes. I'm Kevin from Epic Gardening, and over the years, I've had my fair share of successes, failures, and everything in between, but I've learned how to grow truly amazing tomatoes. So whether you have tomatoes in your garden right now, you've tried and failed to grow them in the past, or you're just thinking about planting some out, the tips in this video will guarantee you are swimming in flavorful fruits this season and for many seasons to come. And this is not your typical tomato tips video. There's some stuff in here that's more consistent tomato production over a longer period of the season. But don't get too hung up on all the different varieties. When I first started growing, I'd look through the catalog and my eye would be drawn to the most colorful, fancy varieties, and they didn't work out that well flavor-wise. For example, I grew one called Brad's Atomic Grape back in the day, which looked beautiful, but it didn't perform that well. And frankly, compared to Sun Gold, one of my favorite cherries of all time, the flavor wasn't even close. So if you
Okay, so let's say we want to embed it. We find a place where there's a break in the audio.
Wasn't even close. So
well, I got a little bit of so on there, but we've got a close point. And let's just say, what is the which is one of his favorite tomatoes? Okay, and then we could put any order we want, but I'm trying to remember some of those other names. One tomato is a beefsteak tomato. I remember that. and that's not correct. And then he said sun gold, I think, was the correct one. And then we could keep adding as many answers as we want. And let's say something else. And so we now have multiple choice. We have to flag one of those as correct. We do that just by clicking on the arrow. It's not showing up too well on this screen, but it turned off the red there. And now you could shuffle the answers. Oh, a new feature. Remember I said multiple select was not allowed? Now it is. This was not there earlier this year. This is a very new feature. So if you wanted to do multiple select where there's more than one correct answer, you could toggle that top option off. So they keep adding new features, and now we have an answer. And so it's now embedded in the timeline right at that point.
If you want foolproof varieties, sun golds are my pick for cherries, but for sauce tomatoes, go with a San Marzano, and for like a sandwich or beefsteak slicer, try a Cherokee Carbon. Now the scare.
Okay, so and then let's go somewhere else. We'll just put another one in, and I'm not even going to watch it because I want to show you some of the things. One of the nice things about this, and particularly in terms of chemistry, is that you notice you can put in text, you could put in a link, an image if you wanted to, or a link to a website, or you can even do some equations. And you can either use the equation editor, or you could do some LaTeX. So we could put y sub I equals simple beta 0 plus let's say beta 1 x. Did I put an I? Oh, y sub y would not make sense. I meant to say y sub I, and then beta 1, and then let's say x sub I, plus an error term, just a simple bivariate regression. And now when I press return, it's going to give me that equation, except I did put in an extra slash in there, or I didn't put one more time. There we go. Okay. And then we can insert that. And now we have a math, except that was supposed to be a subscript and I messed up, but I can always go back in and fix it. There we go. And now we have that. Or you could use, you could put in matrices in, you could put summations, integral signs, put some over, some things on top of it, or some things below it, and you've got a pretty good mix. It's not perfect, but it's got a pretty good math symbol editor. So we've got that there, and we could do the same thing with responses. And I've been using this new my econometrics class, and that's been working reasonably well. I'm just going to put in some nonsense here because this is just for demonstration purposes, and we're going to make this version correct, let's say, and we'll save that. And now we have a video, and once you're done with it, and again, you can adjust it, you can move the things around. Let's say we don't want it there, we want it a little further. Oops, we want to move it a little bit further ahead. We can just drag and drop it until we get to a better place where there's more of a break. And then we can just continue.
Run out of olive oil, you don't have to buy and waste a new plastic bottle.
And we will finish it. And we now have a new video. And now I'm going to log into Brightspace. I thought I was, but apparently I must have logged out in between sessions. Or it may have logged me out. I don't know. And I'm now back in, and I'm going to go to the self group, and I do have a space set up there, and you all have access to this. If you go in here to the section on EdPuzzle workshop, there we go. And in the EdPuzzle workshop, I'm going to add a new one. Now, again, the first time you do this, it will ask you to connect it to your account, and you just log in using your username and your password. But we go to existing activities, then we go to EdPuzzle-OSW because that's the connector. That's how it was set up when Kathy Dutton set up that. And you notice it has there's a little bit of a gap here. We got multilinearity, autocorrelation as two of the most recent ones I used, but we just click on this and we click next. And now you could put in instructions for it, and maybe the first time you might want to do it, but it's pretty self-explanatory for students. And again, we could add some other activities to it, or we could just click next. And then we could set the number of attempts, and we'll set this one to unlimited. That's what I generally do anyway. I do generally set the prevent skipping because I don't want students just to skip ahead to the question and then do that over and over again until they get it correct. I also allow them to adjust the speed. All students can slow it down. So if you tend to talk fast, or if the YouTube video you use is faster, allowing students to slow it down can be helpful. But I know when I listen to podcasts, I listen to them at double speed. And, if someone's been through a video once or twice already and they need to go through it again, I'm not concerned if they watch it twice as quickly, as long as it's still at a speed that they can pick things up. And then for accessibility, enable closed captions. And I wish that was left on automatically, but if it's not, you can just turn it on yourself. And again, make sure that your videos do have closed captioning, and then assign it. And then what happens is it just shows up right there. Now, there's one little thing that happens is that it will go into the gradebook this way, but there'll be an error message because of that vertical pipe between EdPuzzle and the rest. You have to edit that before you add it to your gradebook with a specific location. But otherwise, students can use it, but before the grades will show up and before you can put it in the gradebook, you'll have to edit it. And I sometimes do it now, sometimes I do it later. And you can always do it by just replacing that pipe, because that's not allowed as part of the label in a Brightspace gradebook. And then now it's right there. And there we go. And so now, if you're in here, you could actually try this video. Oh, I should have let it so you could skip ahead. Can I change it now? I might still be able to. Let me see. I might be able to go back because no one has taken it yet. I might be able to change it.
In this video, I'm compressing over 12 years of...
Once you set it up, I don't think you can change it. Let me do it one more time. I'll just create another version of it. That should be fine. So I'm going to go down to, again, external. I'm going to go to EdPuzzle. I'm going to pick up that video again and choose next. Next again. And here we're going to set it again as unlimited and set it up with turning on closed captions and doing this. But I wanted to turn off the prevent skipping for this. And I'm going to assign. And now this new one will be there, and I'll delete the first one too. So that way it won't be confusing to people why there's two of them. And I'm going to just remove it from the content, but keep the associated thing, just in case it might delete it from the other one as well, if it's using the same labels. So now if you want to try it, just go in there and try it as a student, and then it should just work. Are either of you trying it, just out of curiosity, to see what it would look like from a student perspective? And with the skipping enabled, you should be able to just go until you get to that first question. I would demonstrate it, except the instructor can't do that because of the way Brightspace is configured.
Seems easy enough. I just haven't started anything because I wanted to make sure I was watching what you were doing.
Okay. But yeah, it's really easy to do. And I was really surprised at how easy it was. And it just creates another item for the gradebook. And, all you need to do is create a category for it. And then whenever the first student completes the video, you can just edit it and put it into that category, and it becomes part of the grade based on whatever weights you have on that category in your gradebook.
Hi, John. So the 20 video is per year or just per account? As it's free, it's only
I think
20.
it's per account. So, you know, if you want to use more than that, you'd probably have to roll some out and then create some new ones and then, you know, maybe make notes of where they were, delete some of the old ones and add new, but I'm pretty sure it's 20 at a time.
Okay, can you download the video to for your
Well, I don't think so. You can download the videos because, well, if the videos that you own in YouTube, you can just link to them, you know, and keep a link of the ones you use, or you could download them, but you still have to go back in and re-add the questions because I don't think you can save this unless you have, you know, unless you have an account. And I'm not sure.
Of my tomato growing experience into under.
Let me hop out of there. I'm not sure how many I have, but I am paying for an account. And let's see. So if I go to my content, I've got more than 20, I know. There we go. So yeah, I've got quite a few more. And it shows you 12 at a time. So yeah.
Yeah, I like this too. That's so integrated to Brightspace. It's just the 20 free one is quite a limit.
Yeah, I don't remember how much it costs. Let's see. Let's do EdPuzzle. It might be like a couple $100 a year, I think. Pricing plan. Pro teacher. Well, let's see. Yeah, 20 videos without $13 a month. So it's not $150, $160 a year. But you know, maybe you'd be able to get your department to pay for it or something. I don't know.
I just Googled the Google Vid AI tool. It doesn't allow in video quiz yet. So, but I'm going to
You know,
try
I
it out.
did notice something as I've been posting things on YouTube. I have noticed that when you post a video, let me see if I can, if it's visible from within the list of courses. Let's see. There is now a quiz option in YouTube.
10 quizzes per video. I just saw that. So
Okay.
YouTube has it just not integrated with Brightspace. You have to grade somewhere else. Like you just mentioned,
Okay.
the grading part is so tedious. And this tool and puzzle is just so integrated. You know, you don't even need to connect these. But it just like we have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, it was worth it just because, you know, I've been doing this for a while and it's, I've really started doing a lot of these with COVID and I've been just building up more, you know, every year.
Yeah.
But okay, so yeah, I don't know that much about the YouTube because that's I don't remember seeing that feature earlier this year when I was last posting videos back in January or February. But yeah, the ability to do it right within Brightspace and have it auto graded makes it so much easier. The only place I had an issue was because it doesn't show up in the gradebook until someone takes the first time. For the first quiz, I had a student who was doing an independent study and he was skipping a lot of them, but they were not showing up in the gradebook as missing because he hadn't tried them. So, you know, but in a class of any, you know, more than one person, someone's going to take the quizzes when they're assigned and so forth. And you can always set up triggers using intelligent agents to send a reminder to students shortly before the video assignments are due if they have a blank score or a missing score, no grade there. So that can help. I'm not sure what happens because I've only used them one semester in each of my classes. I'm not sure what happens when the class rolls over, if the videos will automatically show in the gradebook. I suspect they will, in which case the second semester that shouldn't be an issue. So Okay, any other questions? I also like the fact that it supports LaTeX, you know, so that way you can do math equations in there. Oh, we could have started with one of the one of our workshop videos and embedded some questions, but the tomatoes was fine.
Thanks, John.
Okay, well, thanks. If anyone, you know, if you have any questions, let me know. I've been working with this quite a bit. I've got several dozen videos in there, and I've been using them with, well, in the fall with, I think it was about 263 students, if I remember correctly. And it basically worked without any problems with them. Okay.
Thank you, John.
Thanks.
Thank you.